la la la. Project your voice. Okay. Hey again, guys. Welcome back to Bluegrass Bookworm, where I talk about everything book related, I guess. So October just ended. I don't know if any of you guys noticed. Very sad, I know, for a lot of you guys. October is a very great time of year. But the good news is that now we're in the best month of the year, my birth month, November. So congrats to you guys for being in this month now. So another month, another wrap up is about to happen. I read, oh my gosh, am I gonna have to pick up all of these? I forgot that was like part of the deal. Just give me a second. I need to like, okay, yep. I read 11, that's 11, right? Yep, 11 books. I read 11 books this month, which is more than last month. I thought that last month was like the most I was going to get ever in my life. So I guess we're moving up in the world, and I guess starting a booktube channel does give me superpowers. So hooray for that. Well, I wanted to start off with a bang. The first video that I made last month was reading hyped up fantasy for a week. And that video did really well. I am so thankful to all of you guys that clicked on that video and watched that. But the 3 books that I read for that, the first one was The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Broadbent, and I gave this one 4 stars, right? I need to fact check myself, one moment. I also need to calm down because for whatever reason I have like a lot of energy. I don't know, maybe it's because of the great reading month I had and the fact that it's November now, so whoop whoop. Okay, yeah, Serpent and the Wings of Night I gave 4 stars. My thoughts on this were, well, first of all, if you don't know what this is about, if you somehow live under a rock and don't know what this book is, it is basically, okay, first of all, a lot of people say that this is like ACOTAR. It's not, okay? So if you're comparing it to like ACOTAR but with vampires, don't, because that's not at all what this is. So what this is it's about a human girl who lives in a world of vampires, and that's pretty much the only like similarities with ACOTAR that it has. So instead of fae, there are vampires, and she's been adopted by the Vampire King and has been brought up as his daughter even though she's human, and he's been training her to be super strong, to fight well and everything. And there's this like competition that she enters where the winner gets to make a wish to the goddess of the vampires. Like, she'll grant any wish, and so everyone wants to win this competition. So it's super deadly, very high stakes. That was my favorite thing about this, was that it's such a page turner. Like, I blasted through this book even though it was kind of long. Yeah, and I just feel like it was so fast paced, high energy, loved it. My qualm with it though was it felt kind of devoid of emotion, not a whole lot of character work, and I think that was just the sacrifice that was made for the plot and just how fast-paced and awesome the plot was. But I feel like there should be a balance, you know? So that's why I gave it 4 stars instead of 5 stars or whatever. So yeah, I super enjoyed this, would highly recommend. Yeah, it is pretty spicy, so I mean there's like one scene. Yeah, so just look out for that. But that is, yeah, those are my only problems with it. I thought it was really good. I really liked it. And then we have Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross, and I gave this 5 stars because there was like nothing wrong with it. It was just like the perfect fantasy romance book. It was so good. And I guess it's not typical fantasy. It's like, I don't know if it's urban fantasy or like magical realism. Maybe it was like urban fantasy, except not in like modern day. It was like it's like 1940s London, I think maybe was the inspiration, somewhere in the 1940s. That's the vibe that it gave me. Yeah, 5 stars. Freaking loved the romance so much. It's enemies to lovers. We're following this girl named Iris whose brother has gone off to war and has to work at this newspaper company while he's away and care for her mother and everything. But at work there's like this rival guy that's like so good, from a rich family. Like, she's from a poor family, so they're like each other's opposite in a lot of ways. And she keeps on writing with this typewriter, this like typewriter from her grandmother. She keeps on writing letters to her brother that's away at war and will like put them in the wardrobe. But then mysteriously the letters keep disappearing, and what happens is that the letters get magically transported to her rival at work, and he like keeps on getting these letters, these notes and stuff that have like really heartfelt stuff in it because it's to her brother. And so he finds them, and he's like, he doesn't tell her. Well, he is able to write back to her with his own wardrobe, and he knows that it's her, but he decides not to tell her that it's him. so it's confusing. She doesn't know who she's writing to, but he knows that it's her. So it's like this interesting dynamic, like, yeah. So that's like the beginning. That's like the initial premise, and it does change along the way, obviously, but oh my gosh. I loved this. So it's like the magical realism element is so interesting because it's like there's typewriters, there's newspapers, there's trolleys and trams and stuff, but then there's like the typewriters are magical, and the war that's going on has been caused by gods, and there's like shops that you can walk into that are enchanted and stuff like that. That's just like these little magical elements that make it so cool, and I love it. It's amazing. Just pick it up already if enough booktubers haven't already told you to do that. So let this be your sign to freaking read this already because it's so good. It's perfect. It's 5 stars. It's amazing. Yeah, please read it. And then the third book I read for that video was, of course, Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. It's probably the most hyped up fantasy book of the year, dare I say. It's very shiny right now because the light is like reflecting right on it, so try not to get too distracted. Eyes up here. So this one is about a girl named Violet who is in a dragon riding school. Wow, it's so bright that it's like the camera's like focusing on that camera. Come on, this is the main event. Let's focus up. Yeah, so it follows a girl named Violet who is in a dragon riding school, and it is kind of, it gives me a little bit similar vibes to The Serpent and the Wings of Night just because of the like the whole high stakes thing. It's not a competition, it's a school, but it's so high stakes that she could literally die at any time, and any of the tests or challenges that come up she could die in, and if she dies, that's like how you fail. Like you pass if you live. So it's very, very crazy that way. And I like the lore, I like the dragons and everything. But I gave this 4.5 stars because I didn't love the writing. I didn't love the pacing. I felt like it could have been faster. Yeah, the writing style, it kind of made exposition and descriptions of scenes and stuff kind of difficult to understand. So that's my problem with it. I felt like there's a lot of other books that do that a lot better, and I feel like I can't give this 5 stars if I have that problem with it. There were just so many times where I would be reading a scene and be like confused, like have to go back and like, wait, did they describe this? What's happening here? So I was just confused a little too many times. And the characters aren't really my favorite. I love the guy. I definitely love the guy. I think I like him more than the girl. I do still like the girl, but I feel like she's not that interesting of a main character. Like not that complex, I guess. I don't know. There were a few side characters that I was absolutely in love with. So yeah, and then there's like some that I absolutely hated. Yeah, I feel like it was a good mix of plot and character work though. I feel like even though Violet isn't that complex of a character, I feel like she was still fleshed out pretty well. Yeah, so I would say if you're looking for, I mean, if you haven't read it already, I feel like half the world has read this already, but if you are the half that hasn't read it yet, I mean, I would definitely recommend, because I mean, if it's not obvious enough from all the people that love it, it's entertaining, it's lovable. It feels like it's gonna be like a good franchise. Like, this is only the first book, and I feel like it's hard to judge a whole story off of just the first book. Like, think of series as like ACOTAR and Throne of Glass. A lot can change from the first book, so it was good. It was good. I feel like a lot more can be done with this world though, and I'm excited to see what that will be. So that's Fourth Wing. And this month I got my wisdom teeth taken out. I went through that surgery, and that was great. And I thought I was gonna be able to read a lot more than I did, but I only ended up reading one book, and that book was The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. Yeah, I don't know, the drugs were just really taking me under, and it got a little bit water damaged. I don't know if you can see that. I actually think it happened when I was gone, and I came back and it was water damage, and I was very devastated, but it's fine. The words weren't smudged or anything, so we're okay. But basically, this is about this woman named Casey, who is like this kind of disgraced Hollywood film star whose reputation has kind of not been in the greatest place, and it's not put her in the best mental state. So she decides to have a getaway to this house by a lake that she grew up going to as a kid. And there's this new couple that bought one of the vacation houses across the lake, and they're like a rich couple. The wife is like a famous model or something, and she kind of makes friends with that wife, and she kind of starts like watching their house because their house is like big windows, and she just sees like some suspicious stuff going on. And there's kind of like this dual timeline going on where even just the first chapter, like I don't want to spoil it at all for you. Like the first chapter is even like, oh, we're hopping right into it. But let me tell you, there were a few plot twists in here that I kind of saw coming, but there was one that totally knocked me off my feet. And I was just like, what? What? What am I reading? Like, I was not expecting it at all. So if you're in the mood to be shocked and just like blown off your feet, this is definitely a good option. option. I feel like it could have been faster paced. That's why I only gave it 4 stars. But 4 stars obviously is still a really good rating. So I definitely would recommend this one. This is a very good one to start off with. And it was also my first Riley Sager book. And if you don't know, he's a very prolific thriller author. And so yeah, I really enjoyed it. Maybe want to read more of his stuff. Would highly recommend. And the next video I did for this one was 24 hours of reading thrillers and spooky books. So yeah, I read an assortment of books along that vein. Some I liked more than others, but definitely my favorite one in that video was And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. Agatha Christie, of course, if you don't know already, is the prolific mother of mystery thrillers, specifically murder mysteries. And her stuff is so good. Like, I know it might be kind of intimidating for some of you because it's like older writing style, maybe a bit more confusing, but I mean, from just what I've read in And Then There Were None, I feel like anyone can understand it. It's so good. I gave it 5 stars. It was so good. I loved it. So basically there is this nursery rhyme that's kind of creepy and morbid about 10 soldier boys that all die in different ways. I can read you just a little bit if you would like. The 10 little soldier boys went out to dine. One choked his little self, and then there were 9. 9 little soldier boys sat up very late. One overslept himself, and then there were 8. And it like counts down and down and down until it goes to one little soldier boy left all alone. He went and hanged himself, and then there were none. And that's where the title comes from. What happens is this anonymous person invites these 10 people to an island, this mansion on the island. Yeah, I'm sure that's what this is. This mansion on the island, and one by one they die in the ways that the poem says. And it's so interesting. It's like totally kept my attention. Like 100% through all of it, I was like, I love this, I love this, this is so good, this is exactly what I want in a thriller. It's like kind of disturbing because like these people are dying, obviously, and it makes you like kind of like, oh, like who could do this? Who would have this kind of sick mind that would find this fascinating enough to execute? And so, and like every time one person would die, I'd be like, okay, well, who's gonna be the next one? Like how are they gonna die? Like, I know that the poem says this, but does it actually mean that? Like, because there's some that like don't die exactly as the poem says, and so it's just like, oh, what? Like, and then when it's revealed at the end, I had my theories, and I thought I was right, and I wasn't. Man, I thought I was right, man. But nope. Yeah, it's so good. If you're intimidated by Agatha Christie, I feel like this is a good one to start with because it's so, ugh. Everything I want in a thriller, everything I want in a murder mystery, amazing. Please pick it up. Please, I'm begging you. I need more people to read this and understand what I mean. And the next book I read in that readathon was The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. That's how I'm choosing to pronounce that name, even though I don't know how to do it. Yeah, so The Silent Patient. This one is about a woman who supposedly murdered her husband. She was found standing over her murdered husband, and ever since that day, she has not uttered a single word. It's been like years or something since she has murdered her husband, and people, like the police, wanted to investigate who actually murdered him and everything, but since she wouldn't say anything, they don't know for sure, and so they just put her in a mental institution, and now she's like this kind of famous psychological case where countless psychotherapists have tried to uncover the mystery, and our main character is one such psychotherapist who wants to try and uncover the mystery himself. And so the story is about him getting a job at this facility that she is at, and just over a series of like investigations of his own, but also sessions with her trying to figure out what actually happened and why she hasn't spoken since then. And it's really good. I really enjoyed the plot twist in this one as well. I mean, I've read books with similar plot twists, so I could kind of see like where it was going, but I can still, like, there are tons of people that have been totally shocked by it, and so I feel like this is another good one to pick up if you really want to be shocked and just like blown off. Like, if you want your head blown off, then just go ahead and read this one. That's basically what I'm trying to say. So yeah, this is a really good one. That's why I gave it 4 stars. And next, I know a lot of you are going to be angry at me for this one, but Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. I gave it 2.5 stars. I was so scared going into this being like, oh my gosh, I don't like it, but it's so like popular and so like acclaimed. Why don't I like it? Is my taste just bad? Yeah. I don't know, I'm still sticking by it because, I mean, I said it a lot in the readathon, so if you want more fleshed out, more concise thoughts on that, then go ahead and watch that one. But I watched the movie right after I finished this one, and I just feel like the movie did it so much better because I really think the plot is so clever. The psychology behind it, the character work, like all that stuff is really clever and smart and everything, but the thing is with the sheer length of this book for being a thriller and being something that has to like keep your attention and keep keep you guessing and stuff. I feel like that alone was just enough to turn me away, but also with the writing style and what the author chooses to focus on. Like, she chooses to focus on the most like mundane things, and some of those things did turn out to be important, but not all of them, to the point where I'm just like, why did we have to spend that amount of time, that much screen time, focusing on something that never even came up? Like, I know that you're trying to flesh out these characters. I know that's what you're trying to do, but you're losing me in the process. So I feel like it was, for this kind of book, it's important to keep your reader's attention and that kind of thing, and so I just feel like she didn't do that. And so that's why I gave it 2.5 stars. But the plot that she has created and the ideas behind it and the concept behind it is still really good, and so that's why I think that the movie did it better. I feel like the movie was just really well done too, well acted, well produced, like all this stuff, and I was like, oh, how are they gonna do this in movie form? And then I like watched it and I was like, oh, of course, like that's really good. That's a good way to do that. So I feel like the movie, especially since it was only like 2 hours, 2.5 hours, I don't know, it was able to keep you guessing because it was short enough, and so it wasn't like hours and hours and days to get through this, which it was for me. Even though it was a 24-hour readathon, I was like, I cannot. Oh yeah, it took me days. It doesn't usually take me days like that to finish a book like this, but yeah, over 400 pages with tiny type and everything. So yeah, I mean, I'm not so sure I'd recommend this one, honestly, but I feel like it speaks for itself with the like the way it's acclaimed and everything. It's like very popular, so there is a reason why it's popular, so I would still say it's like worth a shot to see if you like it. I just feel like, yeah, a lot of it wasn't for me. Maybe if I had just like listened to it in audio, I would have liked it, but I don't know. Yeah, so that's why I gave this 2.5 stars. So after that one, I just needed like a good palette cleanser, and so I started to pick up Final Girls by Riley Sager, and I really enjoyed this one. 3.5 stars. Solid thriller. It is about, the whole concept of Final Girls is about girls that have been part of like terrible group like killings. Some psychopath somewhere has come to a group and killed them all except for one, and that girl is a final girl. So our main character was part of a horrible massacre in the woods when her friend group like went out there to celebrate a friend's birthday. They were like in a cabin in the woods, and then someone came, killed them all, she got away, and she became a final girl. But she has a lot of trauma from that, and so there's this other final girl that was part of something horrible like years ago. What happened was her sorority house got attacked, and she was the only one that got escaped. And so she kind of became a little bit of a mentor to the main character and everything. But when the story opens up, we find out that that mentor final girl has died. She has, in fact, killed herself, which is kind of crazy because she was so intent on just like, we will live past this, get through the trauma together, like all this stuff, and then suddenly she's found dead by her own hand. And so yeah, that's very interesting. But it has made this third final girl that's kind of decided to be more private with her life. It's made her kind of come out of the woodwork, introduce herself to our main character, and so they kind of get into shenanigans. And it's also, the book is kind of dual POV because we're also kind of finding out what really happened to our main character the night of the massacre, because there's a lot of secrecy surrounding that because our main character doesn't talk about it. She even like has kind of blocked out a lot of the memories, and so she doesn't really know all of what happened that night, and so the reader is kind of finding it out along with her, and so that's a really intriguing part of it as well. So yeah, solid thriller. I don't think it's like that memorable for me, at least. That's why I gave it 3.5 stars. So whenever I'm just kind of like, yeah, it was good, it was okay, it's not like I probably won't remember it very well, but then I usually give it like 3.5 stars. So yeah. And then the last book that I decided to pick up for that readathon was The Lottery and Other Stories by Shirley Jackson. Shirley Jackson is like the mother of horror, I have heard, and so this is a lot of her really short stories. And I mean, The Lottery was probably my favorite out of all of these because it was kind of traumatizing, honestly. But so her like form of horror is not normally one that I would like think of, really. Like when I heard that these were like horror short stories, I was expecting, I don't know, guys with chainsaws chasing you, ghosts, demons, stuff like that. But what I got was a lot of like everyday evil and horror. There's just mundane scenes in the kitchen, in the neighborhood, in the apartment building of people just not being good people, and like someone getting kind of screwed over, someone getting lied to, someone getting stolen from, or something that's like, there's just some kind of twisted mind in it. It's so subtle. It's very subtle. So I feel like that's a good thing to know going into this, is it feels like literary fiction, like less so like horror. It's more just like, you know, because a lot of literary fiction explores the darker parts of humanity and what humanity is really capable of. Just like people's evil nature. And so that's what really, a lot of what these stories explore in short little narratives and characters and everything. It's very interesting. Yeah, I feel like it's kind of a dim outlook on life and what humanity is really like, so it's not my favorite, so I give it 3.5 stars. I feel like it was still very interesting, and a lot of the, I enjoyed a lot of the story. It's very creative and very insightful, interesting. That's why I like a lot of classics. I feel like this just had like the classics vibe of like deep exploration of emotion and things like that. People's motives behind what they do, all that kind of stuff. So if you enjoy classics for that reason, I feel like this is a good one. But also if you don't like classics, I feel like the writing is very easy to digest. So if any of that stuff sounds good to you, then yeah, I would recommend these stories. And they're also really short, so you don't have to like dedicate your time to like a long narrative. They're very short. So yeah, this is very interesting, thought-provoking. I'm trying to think of other words besides interesting to describe this. A very cool, a very unique book to end off the readathon on, so yeah. And then to finish off, so I wanted to just kind of like check a series off the list, and so I went into Six Scorched Roses by Carissa Broadbent, which is the novella right after The Serpent and the Wings of Night. And oh my word, I loved this book. It's 4.5 stars. I feel like novellas don't usually take this route. I feel like, oh my goodness, I feel like this is just like a really good fantasy romance, just like in a bite-sized little chunk. Like, it's so crazy with how short it was, the amount of like character work and depth we were able to have. Like, the romance was still so believable, even though it happened within 180 pages. Like, that's kind of wild. So like, I'm so impressed. Honestly, this is my favorite book in the series so far, and it's a novella, so that's kind of funny. I really liked the characters. I really liked the setup for it. I mean, I think the magic in this world is pretty cool, and like the vampires and everything. So, I mean, okay, let me give a synopsis of the plot before I go into more details. But basically, we are following this woman named Lilith, and she has had like a life-threatening disease all of her life, and so she's always come to terms with the fact that she's gonna die young. But what she didn't prepare herself for was her whole town is being ravaged by this awful plague, and her sister has it. And so she's doing everything that she can to find a cure for it, because she's also kind of like, her kind of magic that she does is like kind of alchemy, I guess, like mixing stuff and like herbs and that kind of thing, like finding stuff for healing. And she thinks that vampire blood could be a really good way to find a cure. And there is this, luckily, this vampire, this crazy, creepy vampire that's living like on a mansion on a hill, kind of gives Edward Scissorhands vibes, honestly. And she goes to visit him one day and asks for a vial of his blood in order to experiment on it, and in return she will give him a rose, this special magical rose that's special in some way, and she's gonna do that 6 times over the course of 6 months so that she can keep on experimenting on this blood and find a cure for the plague. And that's why it's called Six Scorched Roses. So as you can imagine, things just kind of like take off from there, and oh my gosh, I don't know, I just really liked it, okay? Honestly, I feel like you could just read this as a standalone. I feel like maybe some of the world building stuff would be a bit confusing. They do describe still a lot, but maybe like if you read the first book, then you'd like understand the world building a little bit better. But I feel like you could just read this as a standalone and it would be just fine. Like, it's so good. I really like it. And honestly, like there's something so satisfying about finishing like an entire romance plot in such a short amount of time and so few pages, and it's still like so good. So yeah, I really liked it. Yeah, so there's that. Okay, and then lastly, I just finished this one, The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King by Carissa Broadbent, which is the last book so far of the Crowns of Nyaxia, or the Nightborn Duet. It's the last book in the Nightborn Duet. I mean, I know like other books in this universe will come out, but I don't know if they're going to be following like the same characters and stuff, because there seemed to be a good conclusion in this book for these characters. So, but basically, obviously if I give a plot summary of this one, then it would contain spoilers from the first book. But the first book ended on a big cliffhanger, and so basically you can kind of imagine, if you know that cliffhanger, where this story goes. We're exploring a lot of the consequences of that, a lot of the outcomes themes and just what that leaves the world with. I'm trying my best here. Yeah, so I gave this one 3.5 stars because I feel like the plot did not really keep me intrigued that well. I do feel like they did a lot more character work in this one though, because like I said, like my qualm with the first book was that like there wasn't a whole lot of character work done. It was mainly plot reliant, but I feel like this one kind of swung the other way where the plot was not getting me, but the character work was really good, or like better. And I feel like there has to be kind of a good mix of both, you know? Like, I feel like there has to be both, and I feel like there wasn't, really. So that's why I didn't give it higher than 3.5 stars, but I still really enjoyed it, and I think it was a good conclusion to the series. And I think the romance was pretty, with where the romance was in the first book, I feel like the way that this progressed was, like, natural and realistic and believable. So, yeah, so I liked it for that reason. Pretty solid. There was definitely more spice in this one. I'm just gonna warn you guys. So that's just something to be aware of if you're not a huge fan of that. So, yeah, that is The Ashes and the Star Cursed King. Okay. Oh gosh. Okay. If I die, please pray for my soul. Oh, okay. Yes. Alright, so those are the 11 books. Oh boy. Those are the 11 books that I read in the month of October. I hope you enjoyed. Oh my gosh. Please tell me your thoughts on these books, if you liked them or disliked them. Comment the books that you read this month, your favorites, your least favorites, your likes, your dislikes, your ratings, all that stuff. I'd love to know if you have any recommendations for me to read in the future. Also put those down there, so make sure to comment a bunch. I'm looking forward to reading them. And yeah, guys, please like and subscribe. Support this channel if you want to keep on seeing awesome content. If you want me to be able to dedicate more time to making these videos, it would mean so much to me if you hit the subscribe button and let me know that you want to see more. So, with all that said, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!